Rush under center. Straight give on a counter, and it's a gaping hole for Mitchell. He's inside the 15, he's at the 10, he's at the 5, and he's going to stretch it across the goal line, and a touchdown. That's a 22-yard run for Keaton Mitchell. Anthony Richardson goes out of the gun, ball in the near hash, backs to throw, and he is decked from the left, and he is sacked and buried. He took a big-time hit, but more importantly, hangs on to the football, and the Ravens with a sack off the left edge.
And he's going off the field, Matt. He got hit unabated. There was no one blocking. The protection was totally not there. You had a back releasing in the backfield, and they were going one way, and you can't have your quarterback take that shot.
That's David Ajabo. Here he goes out of the gun. Ball in the right hash, backs to throw, good protection. Hangs in there, and it's intercepted at the 10-yard line by the Colts. It's their second takeaway today, and it's the linebacker Joe Bacci with the takeaway.
Matt, he went over the top and took the ball away.
The Ravens are going to win in preseason game number 1 over the Indianapolis Colts. It's the Ravens 24 and the Indianapolis Colts 16.
Dislocation, they popped it back in right now day to day.
That's a tricky one because it's 5-man pro, and I'm hot from the backside. I just got to get my eyes, just be able to, react to that. But just 5-man pro, just playing hot. I just got to be on my P's and Q's when it comes to that. I was able to spin there a little bit, not the best of my ability, but just a little bit more. I was trying to get back in there, but they said they already ruled me out, so I was like, all right.
So Eddie Garrison with his selection of we're not going to take it. So is that to imply, Eddie, that you are over? You're not going to take it? You're not going to listen to the excuses anymore? You're over it?
Over it, Jake.
Let me tell you something that I noticed on my way in today. And Anthony Richardson had a dislocated pinky. That does not sound pleasant in any way, shape, or form. It is not something that I would want to go through. It is not something that I'm going to sit here and say that I would be like, just pop me back in and send me in, coach. But I also understand that from the Colts standpoint, they're like, you know what, we've got, this is why we brought in Daniel Jones. And from an Anthony Richardson standpoint, where it is, hey, let me get back in there, and the Colts say no, whatever it may be. The reality is this. There are a lot of things to talk about from that game last night, which we will probably do over the course of the next 3 hours. We can break down the breakdowns of the special teams. We can talk about the encouraging things seen from Tyler Warren. We can talk about the fact that once again, and granted, he's going up against inferior competition versus that of which his competitors early in the game would be lined up against. But we could talk about how, once again, in a preseason game, Ashton Dulin outplays A.D. Mitchell, for example, who caught – and I know that everybody wants to talk about how A.D. Mitchell, it's unbelievable how open he's getting, and he looked great. But, he had 2 completions on 6 targets. We could talk about the fact that their linebacking play, they got good play. I thought Bacci played well, but at the same time, what have we seen that typically when you have – and Joe Bacci's a guy that is the most familiar, obviously, with Lou Anarumo's scheme, but and he played well. He made plays for them, as you heard there. But at the same time, in 2025, it feels like defensively, if your linebacker is your best player, you're in trouble. Hunter Wohler played well. But as I talked about a year ago at the beginning of the year, is it a good sign when your safety is the guy that's leading you in tackles? There's a lot to break down. And the 2025 Colts, and this can well change, but the 2025 Colts can be encapsulated in this observation. I'm driving in today. I drive past the JW Marriott. The JW Marriott, of course, now is it's Indianapolis's most famous and anticipated billboard. Every time there's a big event in town, there's a huge tapestry that is facilitated by the JW Marriott downtown. And I know that people, and I understand it, anticipate, expect, get excited about the Colts season when you get the annual Colts J.W. Marriott poster, okay? This year's says Indianapolis Colts, for the city, for the boss, for the shoe, and it has Jim Irsay's signature. Cool, very cool. The 4 players featured: DeForest Buckner, Jonathan Taylor, Kenny Moore, and Quentin Nelson. Here's the problem with the Indianapolis Colts in 2025.
Are those the 4 players on the side of Lucas Oil? I know it's Taylor, Kenny,
I think that's right.
and Nelson. I assume Buckner's the 4th one, right?
Yeah, Buckner's been up there, I think, the longest probably, right? But here's the thing. I was thinking about that on my way in, and then I thought, who are all the teams that made the playoffs a year ago in the National Football League? Last year's National Football League playoffs, you had, who were the 2 worst teams, Eddie, in the playoffs last year? Who were the 2 worst teams last year in the playoffs? Houston?
Yeah.
And then who would it have been in the NFC? I've got, I mean, my memory, it all runs together to me after a while, right? But last year's playoffs in the NFC, I'm trying to think of who. Okay. The Washington, would they have been the worst?
Pittsburgh was definitely the worst last year, right?
In the AFC?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so probably
Minnesota, even though they had a good record in the regular season?
Yeah. Now, even those 2 teams made the playoffs, but at least a year ago, this wasn't the case. They kind of reverted back to this, I think, because they want to take a step forward. But here is my point. The teams that are really good in the NFL, Buffalo, Baltimore. I mean, you could say the Texans because they won their division. You know, Kansas City, obviously, goes without saying. Even the Chargers, who missed the playoffs. The Eagles. The Lions. You can tell an NFL franchise and how their season is going to go based on the fact that there are, and I would bet, less than 1/4 of the NFL is so uncertain at the quarterback position that at the beginning of the season, when they are featuring their prominent players to sell their fan base to get them excited for a season, they don't put them on that poster representing the franchise. It is the most important position in sports. The NFL quarterback is the most important position in sports. And if it's the most important position in sports, then what does it say about your franchise when you still don't know who it is that is representing you and who you can trust to put on the billboard that is getting everybody excited for the regular season? And that's not to say that Anthony Richardson can't become a great player. That's not to say that Daniel Jones may not have been a good pickup. But what did we see last night? What we saw last night was exactly what was the storyline that was the worst case scenario, but also at the same time, the most predictable scenario. And that is that Anthony Richardson would leave the game due to injury and Daniel Jones would come in, and it was SOP, standard operating procedure. Lackluster play. Daniel Jones, admittedly, he had a couple of plays that he probably got out of trouble based on his legs. For a guy that's been a career 65 roughly % completion percentage quarterback, he struggled below that last night, but at times his passes looked okay. And I know that you're also acclimating to different receivers, and you've got some guys that maybe aren't even going to make the roster that you're throwing to. I get all those things. But the bottom line is this. Yes, Anthony Richardson probably is going to return to practice at the end of the weekend. They probably popped that thing back into place, threw some duct tape on it, and by all account, it looks like it was crisis avoided. Crisis avoided. Anthony Richardson Worst case scenario, not going to come true. He missed. He could have gone back in there, but it was preseason. It was a meaningless game, so they decided not to go with him. But Anthony Richardson needs reps. Anthony Richardson has started literally 20% the number of games or played in them in the NFL that Daniel Jones has. Anthony Richardson needs reps. He needs to, you know why Anthony, you know what was the most important thing about Anthony Richardson missing last night? 3/4 of that game, more than that. 3.9 quarters of that game. The exact play that got him sacked. Because I didn't play quarterback in the NFL. So I have to entrust, listen to, follow the guidance of those that did. And those that did said, this is day one stuff. And Anthony Richardson said it right there. I got to mind my P's and Q's. I got to look over things more thoroughly. Saying it is one thing, but the only way that you learn how to do that, and you can bet Anthony Richardson's going to hear voices in his head and footsteps in his head now the next time he steps out. But the reason he needs to be on the field, the reason he needs reps is exactly that. Because most veteran quarterbacks line up, look over, and see that. And I'm not going off of, it's totally unfair for me, armchair quarterback, radio host, to sit here and say, if I was playing quarterback, I would have noticed. I don't know that. So I entrust and listen to those who played the position. And multiple postings last night from those that played the position or were in the trenches all said, that is job number one, day number one, rule number one of a quarterback. You have to recognize that that's coming. You have to. And the way that you recognize that's coming is through reps and through things becoming muscle memory. Yesterday we had a golf outing. Awesome time, by the way. Legends down in Franklin. Ted Bishop, great dude. Awesome course. A lot of people had fun. Congratulations to everybody that came out and helped raise money for the Franciscan Health Foundation and their cancer care. Home run of a day. But I was talking to Derek White, longtime listener of the show, friend of the station. And Derek was saying that he just took up golf a year ago, and he's like, man, the thing for me is when I hit the ball, it's not about how far I can hit it. Like, it goes left and right. I'm spraying it all over the place. I cannot directionally figure out how to get the ball to go where I want to go, which is one of the – and here's the thing. I'm not a golfer either. I started the same time as Derek. And I said, Derek, the only thing I know, and I know this just from – I can hear Dr. White's voice in my head saying club face, club face, club face. It's repetition. It's hitting the ball the same spot every single time. It's going out and getting a bucket of balls and hitting them the same time and making sure that your club face is where it needs to be every single time. And the only way that you do that is through repetition, 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 and recognition from repetition. And for Anthony Richardson, the things like that, that recognition comes from repetition. And yes, crisis avoided. His finger is okay. He's going to be able to continue on, but he missed critical reps. And that's been what has plagued him since the time he got into the NFL. Maybe it's not his fault he's injury prone. But in that case, it kind of was because you have to recognize that. And Eddie, I think to your point, and I know that you're kind of flippantly playing the song, We're Not Going to Take It, but I think the whole, and I want to be clear, Anthony Richardson, I don't think is a person, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't. But the, oh, shucks, I got to do better, and next time around I'll just pay more attention. We've exhausted that, right?
That's very laissez-faire.
Yes. Like, we're done with that. Richardson, Daniel Jones is on the roster for one reason primarily. And that was because they needed somebody to come in and finally let Anthony Richardson know the laissez-faire time is overtime. Is over. That time's over. And now it's big boy time because you've got a legitimate guy that is willing to take. Sam Ehlinger wasn't scaring nobody, right? Anthony Richardson's not looking over there going, yeah, they're going to hand the keys over to Sam Ehlinger. Or better yet, Gardner Minshew. I always get my years mixed up. Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew was a guy that everybody knew Gardner Minshew was here as the backup, right? They weren't going to long-term hand the keys over to Gardner Minshew. Anthony Richardson knew that, and from the very beginning, Anthony Richardson knew that. Yeah, I mean, I'm the guy. They hand it again. Doesn't make him a bad guy. I would have been the same way when I was 21 years old. If some company would have handed me the keys to something, yeah, laissez-faire all day long. I admit it. But now that it's big boy serious time, you've got to. The most important word in that statement is time. You need time. You need repetition. You need recognition of situations because of repetition. And he has neither. He didn't have any recognition, and then he didn't get any repetition because of it. And everything else that happened in the game, to me, is secondary. Because there's one play that mattered last night. One. And as soon as it happened and he came out, you're like, here we go, back to square one again. Now, I totally get it. I totally understand that people want to sit here probably and say that I'm making a mountain from a molehill. I get it. I totally understand. And that's fair. But if you are an NFL franchise, and you are an NFL franchise that has been actively looking for your next franchise quarterback, and everybody in your fan base knows that you're actively looking for your next franchise quarterback, and you band-aided it. You went with Carson Wentz, thinking that was, and I'll give them credit. Carson Wentz was young. He had a pedigree. He had a history with the coach. They did that, and they immediately recognized that was not the right answer, and they pulled the plug. I'll give the Colts credit on that. And they tried Phillip Rivers to get 2 years out of him. They went with Matt Ryan. That one, they just went into the 11th hour, and it was like, holy cow, like, we've got to get a quarterback. And Matt Ryan was available, and they rushed in just before closing at the day before Christmas sale and got him. And he couldn't play. He was done. He was washed up. And then it came down to it where this franchise knew, and its fan base knew, we are now at the crossroads where we've got to get our franchise quarterback via the draft the old school way. And usually with this franchise, when they've had to do that, it's fallen right into their lap. Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, right into their lap. Can't miss products. Anybody could have seen it. And in this case, it was the real test to Chris Ballard. Okay, here we are. You're wiping clean the Etch-a-Sketch. You're starting over with a franchise quarterback. Who are you going to go with? Who are you going to go with? They get credit for not buying in with Will Levis, even though I was told during the combine that year that Jim Irsay really liked Will Levis. That doesn't mean, but Irsay let Ballard make that pick. They did not, as Carolina did, do anything to move up in the draft. And they may well have been smart to not go to get enticed by a Bryce Young. But they went with Anthony Richardson. And while Anthony Richardson may still show us promise and may still pay that off, the reality is this. The reality is that if you are 3 years in to the quarterback that everyone was waiting and anticipating to see where you were going to go with it, with a franchise quarterback selection, and 3 years later, you're not confident and comfortable and assured enough to put him on the J.W. Marriott, that's a problem. It's a problem. Virtually any other franchise, not any, but the franchises that people are talking about, the ones that are expected to compete, the franchises that you see, people, I'm flying today. I got to fly through LAX. I'm going to see people walking around, I guarantee it, see people walking around wearing a Rams hat or a Broncos hat or a Chiefs hat.
You think you see any cardigans?
What's that?
You think you see any cardigans?
Cardigans?
Yeah.
Like the sweaters?
Hopped in a plane at LAX with a dream and a cardigan?
That's an outstanding reference there, by the way. I mean, you might even see Titan stuff because it's a Nashville party, right? I'm only going to be in LAX on a layover, though. I'm not actually getting out, so I might not see the Cardigans, and I may not hear was it a Jay-Z song that was on the radio in the cab?
Yes, that is right.
Not an Uber, but a cab. That shows you how old the song is. But here's the thing, Eddie. Those franchises that are the ones that people pay attention to, the ones that people talk about, all of them have a quarterback that when you drive past the stadium is plastered right there in front of you. I went to Orchard Park, whatever it was, 2 months ago when I was on my road trip with Byron. We went to go see the Bills' new stadium, and what's like staring us right in the face but Josh Allen? You go driving through Kansas City, and I know these guys are elite. I get it. Patrick Mahomes, everywhere. You can't sit here and tell me that you draft a guy in the top 5 picks in the NFL draft or top 6 or whatever it is, that's your franchise guy, and 3 years later, not only are you not confident enough to have him be the face of your franchise, but at the same time, in a critical moment when you got to go back out there to show us that this is the new and improved, mature, non-laissez-faire Anthony Richardson, and one drive into it, back to the sidelines. Sure, he's going to come back, and he's going to practice, and he may still have a monster year. I hope he does. But what do we say about precedent? The precedent says that, unfortunately, I mean, you could drive in the Indy 500 in the late 80s and the early 90s. I'm telling you, like, if the Buick was faster than any engine. It was. It was faster than any engine. But you know why the top teams didn't go with the Buick? Because it never lasted 500 miles. Al Unser was the only driver that got to go 500 miles. Ask Jim Crawford and everybody else. You know, they're out there. They're turning massive speeds in the speed traps, and everybody and their brother knows if it was Indy 350, that's the engine to have. But eventually you back away from it because precedent said that it wasn't durable enough. And I hope I'm wrong. Man, do I hope I'm wrong. But it is unbelievable that Anthony Richardson, the entire narrative about him has been 2 things. Number 1, can't stay healthy, and number 2, hasn't gone into the brass tacks deep weeds on getting to know and understanding reads and things that happen around him. And what happens yesterday, but by all account from people that played the position, the most obvious read of all time that disaster and heat is coming from the opposite direction comes, and then durability knocks him out, and he misses reps because of recognition or lack thereof. Also, the fever last night. I intentionally, for you, Eddie, waited this long to mention the fever because of the fact that was not a pretty game last night. And the injury bug also, I don't know what it is in like the water supply of the White River Canal, but it's now hit the fever as well.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound good in terms of Sydney Colson, the backup point guard. She left with a knee injury, and she's getting more tests done today and maybe find something out later. If not, definitely we'll have something in terms of an update tomorrow with Stephanie White because they host the Chicago Sky, and I think depending on what happens today, they can make an emergency like hardship kind of deal. That's how Ari McDonald was even brought in with the fever in the first place because they were so short-handed. They signed her to an emergency deal. Next thing you know, she impresses, and she signed to the team long-term. Ari McDonald leads the game in the fourth quarter with a foot injury.
And that happened near the bench, didn't it?
Yeah, it was like, my guess it was one of those, kind of like Aaron Nesmith, where you take a shot, you take a step back, and somebody on the bench is like incredibly close to the floor, and you just step on somebody's foot.
Because what I thought was interesting with the McDonald injury is it was initially listed as a non-contact injury, and then it said that they think she may have stepped on something, and I'm like, well, that's not non-contact. Non-contact's when you're just like standing there, and all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like you make one move by yourself, and you collapse.
Yeah, and Sophie Cunningham re-aggravated her right ankle injury. She didn't start the second half. She still played well, and of course, they don't have Caitlin Clark, and there's no update on that. So, yeah, it's a hot mess over there right now.
Eddie,
with
is
the
everything
fever.
going okay with you? Today is an irritable Eddie day. We haven't had an irritable Eddie day in a while, but you seem irritable.
I was slightly irritable yesterday.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It was hot out.
You and your 12-year-old best friend got together and were making inappropriate jokes for 10 minutes.
There was nothing inappropriate about it at all. I was mentioning the fact that my muscles in my body are very tight, and that because I'm now, instead of being a lifetime at 6'4", and my last physical, I'm dipped underneath that. I just need to be stretched, and I don't think there's anything inappropriate about that. Now, it's slightly inappropriate that Mark came up with this today. Do you have what Mark came up with today, which is that does feel a little bit inappropriate? And what I think is happening here is I think that Mark likes hearing himself on the radio. Isn't that what this is? I think that's what this is. Mark Dykton came up with this today, which is, yes, it feels slightly inappropriate. Do we have that?
I got to get it, Jake. Hold on. I was busy doing pre-production stuff for the show.
Well, that Mark did pre-production stuff for the show and came up with this, and then I thought it was neat and fun, and then I realized that Mark just likes hearing Mark. That's what I figured out in this whole drill, right? So Mark Dykton came up with it, and Eddie thinks that this was inappropriate yesterday. I don't think so.
I'll play it coming back from the break.
Okay. We'll let you find it. How's that? Big show lined up. Casey Valle going to join us. He had to take phone calls last night after the game. One guy called in and said that there is a player on the roster that is actually the one that has the most common sense. And Casey handled it well, but I thought, okay, I'll tell you what player that was. And we will get into beyond the Anthony Richardson discussion, I promise. I am curious from you folks. I'm curious. Am I overstating this? Am I making too much of this? I'm totally open to that critique if you think that I'm making too much over what was a dislocated pinky that went wee all the way home, and now the little piggy's back at market and everything looks to be good. Maybe I'm making too much of it. Maybe I am. I think that those are toes and not pinkies, by the way, but nonetheless. 239-1070, the telephone number. Casey Valle on the show today. Kevin Bowen on the show today. Plenty to get to, and we will continue doing it on the other side. It's Corey and Company here. Friday edition on The Fan. So I don't find that inappropriate at all. It was physical yesterday for Anthony Richardson as well, and obviously that's going to be an epicenter of conversation today, but I'm curious. Maybe I am making too much of it. I mean, now, by all account, multiple reports basically confirmed Richardson is going to be back as if nothing ever happened, essentially, okay? And that's good news. But it feels like, and it's not necessarily his fault, but with Richardson, it just feels like you should have known this was coming because it is so par for the course. It was so par for the course that, and you heard Kevin Bowen say it, this was supposed to be his night where we were supposed to get opportunity to find out exactly who and what Anthony Richardson this year was going to be, and instead he is missing out on the opportunity of repetition because he didn't have recognition. And if you break down that play, that is one that most people who know the quarterback position would say that he should have seen what was coming. And I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show, and that is, it's simply symbolism. But when you have not one, not two, not three, but 4 players on the side of a building to promote your upcoming season, and you don't have your quarterback as one of them, that right there is a sign that you are an NFL franchise that has no idea what your season's going to look like. And you're not confident in the guy that you drafted to be your directional leader because you're not certain he's going to win that job. So plenty to unpack from yesterday. Speaking of par for the course, a guy that I think had several of them because I saw him at the golf outing. We'll begin with Mo from Northwest Ohio, who thankfully made it back safely, it would appear, from his trip and a very long day in golfing yesterday, and then back in time to watch the Colts. Mo, what do you think? Your thoughts on last night?
Well, yeah, I got 2 things. Number one, I wanted the golf event that you and Franciscan put on was just top notch. The course and everybody else. So that is number 1 on the list. Anybody, that was just a great time, and I very, very much appreciate me coming down there to be a part of that. That was awesome. Second one was I keep trying to believe into Anthony, and it's really amazing that you would say something about a golf swing and the things that are going wrong here and there, and you try to buy into it. And I just more and more I've been around it. The NFL is not a developmental league, especially for the number 1 position, quarterbacks. And we used to think it was his short passing and all that, and now it's getting to the point of recognition. And I don't know if you have enough time to develop him. I don't. And one man's junk is another man's treasure. And maybe my fear, and it's not an unfounded fear, but that he goes on some other place after he's gotten a foundation here and becomes a starter and does have a decent career. But right now, it does not look good.
Mo, here's the thing. The unfortunate aspect of it, because you're right, is the fact that the Colts need it now. You know what I mean? I mean, this is year 3. And,
yep.
There have been plenty of times that we have seen players that develop and flourish elsewhere, maybe because there's less attention on them, less focus, whatever it may be. But, that maybe that is the case. And that would be, listen, I don't think anybody is rooting against Anthony Richardson as a guy. Nobody is. If he went elsewhere and flourished, I mean, it would be a bit of a kick, but at the same time, I could see people being happy for the guy.
I do have a pushback on that. Like, you look at the players that have done that, they've all had some sort of success in college. Like Baker Mayfield won the Heisman. Sam Darnold passed for over 4,000 yards, and Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl with the Rams. Like, all those previous players have had experience.
That is, I think what Mo said there is very true, and that is that it's difficult for this to be a developmental league. And again, recognition comes through repetition. And last night, Anthony Richardson had neither. And that's the only thing you wanted from preseason game. Who cares if they win that game? Hell, the Colts, the year they won the Super Bowl, they were 0-4 in the preseason. Who cares about preseason record, right? But you have to go through the reps for the sake of the recognition. David. David with thoughts on Anthony Richardson. What's up, Dave?
Well, I'm kind of like you, Jay. I'm worried. I want him to do good, but you're saying repetition. Can't do it if you're injured. Would like to see the injuries to stop. Took a good shot last night, and you can't do the repetition if you're injured.
David, we haven't even mentioned the fact, by the way, that Justin Wally, and that's, I mean, a real blow. Justin Wally looked like a guy that was going to be, I mean, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, a lot of buildup about him, and now what do we know is he's out for the year. Knee injury. And I get it. I mean, the preseason, you know, the NFL, man, it's a collision sport, not a contact sport. I get it. These things happen. But that one hurts as well because that's a promising young player, and now you're left picking up the pieces on that as well. Billy, what's up? Hang on, Billy. Billy, I'm going to have you come up from that the little capsule you're on to go down to see the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean. We'll have you come back up from that. I'll check back with you here in just a couple of minutes. Matter of fact, Billy, Jeff, stick around. We'll continue the conversation. Casey Valle coming up top of the hour, but we'll put kind of a tie on the Richardson discussion with Billy and Jeff and then get into other areas yesterday that were promising. So we will do that on the other side here. Query and Company on the Fan. Telling you. There were some good things last night, actually. You know who the leading rusher was for the Colts last night in preseason game number 1? And had a big run taken away on a penalty. You know
Ulysses Bentley the Fourth.
Granted, it helps when you're riding on top of the horse with your polo stick. But Ulysses Bentley, yes, it came out, and there were a lot of people that thought perhaps it would be digging to get into majority carries, but Ulysses had himself a game. And, might I add, someone pointed out to me last night on the Expos Twitter that when they were looking for the game broadcast, they managed to find the Baltimore television broadcast and thought it would be fun to watch that. And the guys in Baltimore said, this guy sounds like he'd be British or some sort of regal, like royal name. And I'm like, clearly they listen to this program, right? But look, Tyler Warren looked good.
He did. Played all 20 snaps in the first 3 series.
Hunter Wohler looked good. Made plays for them. There were some positives and good things to take away. I thought at times the defense looked good.
I thought the run defense and the run fits from the linebackers were terrible. Oof, it was rough.
Yeah, the pass rush you can go back and forth on, right? I mean, Bocce made plays for them. Hunter Wohler, again, looked like a guy that continues on the trend of he's going to be able to help them, but at the same time, you do not want your safety being your leading tackler. Billy, back to the Anthony Richardson discussion. Hi, Billy.
What's up, Jake? Let me just tell you this. We don't have our franchise quarterback yet. To me, Anthony Richards, when you do your research on him and go back and look at his background, he started off playing wide receiver in high school, went to quarterback because of an injury, went to Florida and played 12 whopping games, was injured often at Florida. So when they took him on draft hunt, I told my wife, I said, we just drafted a project as our first-round draft pick. Can you believe this? And then you go to Daniel Jones, who I call a reject from the Giants. He was their scout team quarterback. He went from the number 1 guy to 4th. So to me, I don't know what to tell you, because right now we don't really have a legitimate quarterback. I know Anthony's got a big arm. I understand that. But when you can't read defenses, and last night, you could read the blitz I could read the blitz coming from sitting in my chair. I used to coach football, and I told my wife that he's fixing to get killed. But to me,
hold on, Billy, did you say he's fixing to get killed?
Yeah, I told my wife that he's fixing to get nailed. He's fixing to get nailed.
No, hold on, Billy.
So the guy right there is fixing to go get him.
Here's the thing I'm most curious about, Billy, and I'm fascinated by this, okay? Does your wife engage in the Anthony Richardson conversation, and is she equally as invested in this, or is your wife because for example, if I said to Shannon, Anthony Richardson's fixing to get killed, Shannon would say, I'm fixing to go watch Real Housewives of Orange County on the other channel. I'm curious what Billy's wife says about the Anthony Richardson conversation and what her thoughts are.
I will tell you this, Jake. My wife is a Cowboy fan. She watches the Colts game because I watch the Cowboy games with her. She knows who Anthony. She loved the night I made the comment to her about drafting. I said, we just drafted a freaking project. The guy that I wanted was C.J. Stroud, and I wish Ballard and them would have put together a deal to go get him, but they wouldn't, because they were just heck bent on getting Anthony Richardson because he's got a big arm.
Billy,
well, a big arm don't make a good quarterback.
Billy, when and where? Because I know from your time in calling in radio programs, if I'm not mistaken, that you're outside of 465. Now you're a Texan, right? Is that right?
Right. Well, I'm in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can tell that because of the fixin' and the heck to be bent and all that, which is, and I love that, right? And then the fact that your wife is a Cowboys fan. I'm curious how you became a Colts fan.
I became a Colts fan because I grew up with the Baltimore Colts. My brother, when I grew up, was a huge Colts fan, and I just have never left the horseshoe.
Okay.
I grew up as a Colts fan. Now, I will say this. My boy Bentley that played at Ole Miss did well last night.
No, that's Ulysses Bentley the Fourth.
Yeah, if they'll give Bentley a chance, Bentley will be a good back. Okay. He was a good back at Ole Miss.
Billy, if you don't mind me asking, and you live where currently?
I live in Tyler, Texas.
Okay, now and how long have you lived in Tyler, Texas?
I lived in Tyler 30-some years. I got here in 85.
Okay. Have you met Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose? Have you met Earl Campbell? Oh, we didn't lose Billy, did we? What a cliffhanger. Billy all of a sudden just drove out of Tyler. They have one cell tower in Tyler, Texas. Billy just drove past it and got out of range, apparently. I need to know if Billy's met Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose, the pride of Tyler, Texas, Earl Campbell. Billy, we need to do, here's the bottom line. I'm making a declaration right now. Eddie, do we happen to have the breaking news sounder? All right, Billy, Mondays with Billy. We're doing it all season long. I need Billy calling in each Monday with his post-game breakdown.
Well,
wife.
He's a staple in the fifth quarter huddle after Colts games as well.
I'm aware, but Billy and wife. I need Billy and wife Mondays with Billy. Now, we don't need I shouldn't say that. If his wife wants to join the show, that's also fine. But I think we need to know what Billy – I want to know how the couch conversations are going with Billy and wife. When he's saying to his wife, you know what I mean, come heck or high water, I want to know what his wife is saying about the Colts, even though she's a Cowboys fan. This is what the people of this town want and need. And I know that Billy calls other shows. I mean, he's been a staple in Indy Sports Talk Radio. But we are trying to grow our audience. Chicago's Pizza has 18 Central Indiana locations. They might do it. Maybe they'll do a Tyler, Texas, auxiliary. We don't know. We're trying to get Eddie right now. By my calculations, okay, by my calculations, this radio program, we have listeners. We know this 24 female listeners. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we have listeners representing 7 zip codes. If we can actually get a regular Billy call-in to show that we are reaching Texas, that's a whole other country. That makes us international. Texas is, if you've been to Texas, I mean, let me tell you something.
Yes.
Okay. Texas is its own country. That makes this an international program. We educate, entertain, and now the reach of this show just based on Billy alone. This is our conduit to big-time stardom, Eddie. Big-time stardom.
Now, you mentioned 7 different zip codes. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got Tyler, Texas, and whatever zip code that is covered with Billy. So how quick is your mom driving through the other 6?
Let me tell you something. Let me begin with this. Here's my zip code knowledge. Are you ready? I was like 51 years old before I figured this out.
So, like last year?
Yes. Do you know that zip codes all start on the East Coast with 1, and then as you move your way west, you can tell how far west you are?
No, because, Jake, I'm not like you. I don't really care to know zip codes of where I'm at.
When I was in Lawrence, Kansas, my zip code was 66044. And I'm like, wait a minute. My zip code had been 46250 previously. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, Beverly Hills I know is 90210. And then I thought, wait a minute. I think Vegas is like 7-something. I'd like to know if anybody else, am I the last person on planet Earth to have figured this out? Or is in like New York City, when I lived in New York City, my address was the best address I've ever had, 35 Fifth Avenue. 35 Fifth Avenue, 10020. That was my address. So 1, and then the 4 by the time you get to Indiana, and then 6 in Kansas, and then 9 for Beverly Hills, 90210. You move right to left. Am I the only person that has ever figured this out? I think Florida's 3-something. Like, isn't like aren't zip codes in Florida all of 3? So just, you see what I'm saying? Are you fascinated with this level of information, Eddie?
No.
Do you ever think yourself that you have access to this sort of Encyclopedia Britannica on a regular basis?
No.
Are you aware of the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yes, unfortunately.
They're those books that your parents once bought from a guy door to door that just sit on the shelf, right? Casey Valia going to join us coming up, and he is going to do so at 1 o'clock. Mercifully, Casey's going to join us just a couple minutes. with two different groups of listeners, somewhat growing within the female listening audience, and then also postal workers.
So
right?
friends of your mother and friends of my mother?
Yes.
And then postal workers.
Postal workers.
That are named Paul.
Correct. We have two Paul the mailman, and then you've got Matthew now is working for the post office.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Good for Matthew. Matthew from Maine, right? Now Matthew
correct.
of Indianapolis.
John the mailman. I mean, I've got several mailmen. Paul has sent me Zippy, the mailman mascot.
Oh.
And several people have now informed me, and this is the thing about learning.
I'm sorry, Casey. They have to listen to this.
Learning never stops, right?
That's true.
Learning is like an Anthony Richardson injury. Just when you think you've reached the maximum, another is right around the corner. Another factoid, right?
Yep.
And Maine zip codes are 0, and I think Boston as well, 0. And then you get and I'd like to know, what's Alaska? What are the Alaskan zip codes? Because if it's 0 starting at Maine, and then 1 is New York City, and then like you get to 4 by the time you're in the Indiana, and
what's
then
Hawaii?
6 was Kansas. Correct. And Hawaii. What are those? They're probably both 9, right? But 90210 is California. So as you go east to west, the numbers get bigger. Hawaii's got to be like 99 or 98, right?
96.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Guam. Like, if we want to, we still got room. If Hawaii's 9-6, we still got the 9-7s and the 9-8s to get to.
And then,
so let's just keep moving. I mean, westward expansion, manifest destiny. Let's go. What's the furthest? Let's just keep going west. We got 2 more zip codes to fill.
Alaska is 99.
See, darn it. Now, Alaska, by the way, in case you didn't know this is your fun fact, and when I say this, it's going to brighten Casey Valier's day. I mean, he's going to say it tonight. He's going to say to somebody, I was doing radio today, and I learned something.
Washington is 98 or 99.
Did you know that Alaska is the furthest northern, the furthest western, and the furthest eastern state in the United States? Did you know that?
Wow.
See? Now you're gonna question me because you're gonna say eastern. Jake doesn't know what he's talking about, but Heidi Ho, Smarty Pants, everybody else, look it up. Alaska, furthest eastern state. Casey Valier last night was pulling the late duty as he was breaking down what happened with the Colts game yesterday as part of the postgame radio show, doing so with Bill Brooks. One guy called in and actually said that Riley Leonard is the guy on the roster with the most common sense because he went to Notre Dame.
Well, he actually said Leonard Riley.
What's that?
He called him Leonard Riley. So
did he really?
He did. He called him Leonard Riley, and that was my first indication of, okay, this is where we are, at 12:30 on Thursday night.
So if you're going to call in and say that a guy has common sense, probably the thing to do is to not confuse him with the head coach of one of your arch rivals, right?
Exactly.
For what that's worth, right?
Yes. No, you're spot on. I thought it was very, very ironic and par for the course for a preseason call-in show to have a Leonard Riley reference for Riley Leonard. So,
okay.
Yes.
Casey, let's get to this. I know you guys talked about it. I listened to a lot of the show yesterday, and we're going to talk plenty about Anthony Richardson. I mean, that goes without saying. So let's get into the areas not quarterback related for the Colts. And I will begin with the areas that, because I've been basically harping on the negative for an hour now, let's go with the positives. Give me 2 or 3 that you really did feel like, okay, there is something there, and I do like what I saw in that aspect.
Yeah, I think one of them is pretty obvious. I think everything you saw out of Tyler Warren yesterday was right what you were expecting to see. I think he looked every bit the part of the guy who's going to really open up the tight end room inside the Colts offense. He had 3 catches for 40 yards, had one explosive play of 23 yards where he kind of caught the ball on a slant and was able to turn it upfield. And it's a very small sample size, but I think everything you saw out of him was really good. Another name that we mentioned a couple different times on the broadcast yesterday, which was good because he had a very impressive week. I think Hunter Wohler was another player that I know that we've kind of talked about him a little bit more over the last couple of days because of what he did in that joint practice. But, the rise that he has had over the last week and a half, 2 weeks of camp, being a 7th-round pick, initially just getting reps at special teams, but now starting to insert his play into safety, kind of can also play a little hybrid linebacker inside this Lou Anarumo defense. I think he had a pretty good day yesterday. Led the team in tackles. He seemed to be in the right place majority of the times. There was the long touchdown run by Keaton Mitchell that I think he took a bad angle on. But outside of that, I think you saw a lot of really good from Hunter Wohler. And then ultimately, I think also it was a decent day from the offensive line interior wise. You wanted to see Tanner Bortolini, Matt Gonzalez, look the part, and I think there may be a couple areas that Tanner Bortolini would want to shore up at the center position, but I think for the most part, interior-wise, I think you saw a couple of the Colts' projected starters go out and play pretty well. But then outside of that, there are a handful of things that you really want to shore up, and I think it all starts with special teams. That was a very, very big concern with the amount of return yardage you allowed. They had over 220 net return yards for the Ravens, including a massive long touchdown punt return and then a kick return that went for 60-plus yards, too.
I thought Bill Brooks made an interesting point last night, Casey, when analyzing I take that back. It might have been actually Charles Arbuckle with Matt that said this before they threw it to you guys. One of the two, I can't recall. But just in analyzing Daniel Jones and the fact that the numbers were less than what you are accustomed to with Daniel Jones if you look historically at his career from a percentage standpoint, but that there were a few times that he was able to recognize, and I'm not saying to pick on Anthony Richardson, but Jones was able to use his legs sometimes to recognize a situation that may not have been a productive play, but it avoided a disastrous play. Is that a fair assessment?
I completely agree. I think a lot of people, we live in an era now where it's so fantasy driven, so you're looking strictly at stats. And I think if you look at the stat sheet, I think he was 10 of 21 for 144 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked once. And those numbers, they don't jump off the page at you by any means. But I think he was able to come in and do some good. You mentioned that. I think there was also a handful of drops that, those are big areas of concern. Now, a lot of those guys are, the guys lower on the depth chart. Anthony Gould had a couple. You saw a couple out of the running backs, too. So those are some areas you'd like to shore up. But I would agree with that. I think for the most part, Daniel Jones looked pretty poised. And, he owned the quarterback position yesterday pretty well. He had good command. And I thought, especially you talk about being able to escape, use his legs to create. I think that play that we saw where he kind of threw it across his body to Ashton Doolin to, I think it was a third and 5, 3rd and 6, something like that, to, get a first down where you had to escape, you had to scramble, get out of the way of some, guys coming in to get you and being able to make an explosive play. I think those are kinds of things that people don't necessarily think of when you think of Daniel Jones, but he does have good athleticism. He's got good mobility, so he can make those kinds of plays. So it was good to see it on display last night.
Do we read into, Casey, I thought once again, and this seems to be par for the course each time that this guy's number's dialed up, Ashton Doolin, to me, when his number is dialed up, makes plays. But it's hard to read yesterday how much of that to put stock in because he was admittedly going against probably a more inferior defense than those that are slotted ahead of him, a la an A.D. Mitchell. But Doolin yesterday I thought looked good. A.D. Mitchell got himself open, but at the same time, you've got to do better than 2 catches and 6 targets. However, was that on the 6 targets and the 2 catches for Mitchell? Was that on the defense or is that on Mitchell?
I think that one's kind of a mixture of a couple different things. I think a couple of them, you'd like to see him bring in. I think there's a part of Mitchell's game that you're kind of waiting for him to take the next step, and I think a big part of that is, and this is not at all a stab at him, it's kind of those physical catches. When it's contested and you've got to really battle for it, I think those are where, that they call them 50-50 balls, and majority of the time that's where you're seeing those targets that, not necessarily a bad ball, not necessarily him not bringing it in. It's just you'd like to see him be able to haul in a little bit more of those 50-50. And I think part of that was the issue last night. I can see a couple plays that, allude to, I think it was 6 targets, 2 catches. A couple of them I think were in those kind of ilk where it was a contested catch. And those are things you would really like to see A.D. Mitchell continue to evolve that game because ultimately, you know where you stand in the pecking order. You're probably going to be that fourth receiver. You've got to be able to make the most of your opportunities when they come to you. And that's where I'm glad you bring up Ashton Dulin, because he is a guy that I've always said you feel really, really comfortable. If Ashton Dulin is your fifth receiver, you feel great about that because you know exactly what he's going to give you on a special team standpoint. He's one of the best gunners in all of football. He has not lost a step. And he is a very reliable weapon in the offense side when he gets his opportunities. He's never going to be, your number one option. But like I said, if he is your fifth receiver, you feel pretty good about that room.
Casey, do you think that the Anthony Richardson injury and the fact that he did not return to the game, and I think we now know Anthony Richardson, for those just joining us, it was a dislocated pinky. It was, obviously popped back into place. That's a little weird to say, but it looks like he is not going to miss significant practice time and, in fact, will be back on schedule in terms of practices. But how does this now juxtapose the schedule in terms of which quarterbacks get reps, say, in game number 2 that is so important? I think Richardson – originally, I think we didn't know who was going to start game 2. Then I think they said Jones. Does this now change things in terms of where Shane Steichen goes with that?
That's a great question because that's kind of one of the ways that, we've been not really beating around the bush, if you will, but we've been trying to avoid how to answer that because we don't know. We're going to hear from Shane Steichen this weekend, and my guess is that all this did is it just kind of flopped it, because Daniel Jones essentially got a quarter and a half that he was anticipating getting against Green Bay. Now, the one question that I have, and I think it's a valid question, is it's kind of like sudden change. For the defense, you go out and you stop a team. You force a punt, and then all of a sudden the offense throws an interception. You got to run back out there. In some ways, that's kind of what Daniel Jones had to deal with yesterday because he wasn't anticipating going in as early as he did. So I'm sure it took him probably a series to kind of get back into the flow, get in the mind frame of all of that. So I don't know if that weighs into things. If you want to see I want to see Daniel Jones start a game, and maybe it's like Daniel Jones gets a series and then they go with Richardson, because I could understand that as well, because Richardson got the start. You want to see what Daniel Jones does if he gets a start, so I could understand it from both sides. But my guess is that it probably just flips it so that if Anthony is available to go, and I think also it really is important to notice also if he's available to go during the joint practice, because we know how much weight they put in that, the stock that clearly with the amount of starters that rested yesterday for the Colts, those joint practices are monumental. So it'd be really good to see both Jones and Richardson be able to give it a full go for the joint practices. And then I would assume we've kind of seen it'll just be a complete flip of what the initial thought process was going to be for this game too.
When you look at the linebacker spot, Casey Valle is our guest talking about the Colts. Of course, last night doing the post-game show, taking the calls about Riley Leonard and Leonard Riley, for that matter,
yes.
et cetera. Casey, when you look at the linebacker spot, I thought Bocci played really well. Joe Bocci played well. He made some plays yesterday. He is the most familiar, clearly, with Lou Anarumo's defense. But were we encouraged because of the fact that he was making plays, or was that illuminated by the fact that the linebacking group still is a position that isn't necessarily designed, especially in that defense, to make plays, and those are designed more so for the aggressive play that takes place behind them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because that is one of the things that we have heard from Lou Anarumo throughout his tenure here with Indianapolis, with essentially, he doesn't want tight ends guarding the linebackers guarding tight ends. So essentially you're going to see a lot more of the multiple defensive backs and maybe just 1 to 2 linebackers out there. It's not devaluing the position, but I think within this framework, he thinks he would prefer to have speed and coverage instead of, the typical linebackers that you would see. But I do think what you've seen out of Joe Bocci has been pretty good to this point. I think that interception yesterday was impressive. I mean, he was able to, it was a 50-50 ball. He went and got it. He took a nice pop, I will say that. But for the most part, I thought that was a very heads-up, intelligent play from a guy who has been able to run a little bit more free inside this defense, being a part of it for the last handful of years. But, as far as the other linebackers go, I think last night was, an up and down night for the linebacking crew, which I'm sure in turn shows what Lou Anarumo is expecting from, what his defense is going to look like, being able just to utilize guys like Zaire Franklin, and if that is Cameron McGrone or Jalen Carlisle, just having just this little smaller rotation of linebackers mixed in with a whole bunch more defensive backs.
By the way, the Justin Wally news just sucks, right? I mean, not just – and listen, I don't just mean, Casey, from a football standpoint of the Colts, but when he was drafted, we had him on. He seemed like a nice young guy, but a guy that just showed up from day one with his lunch pail and his playbook and was ready to go and really, I think, was poised to be a breakout draftee for the Colts. And then preseason game number 1, the knee injury, we now know, out for the year. It goes without saying it sucks in every way. But football is a business. That means opportunity for who?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's funny. If you'd asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I would have said, man, that cornerback room, it's so deep, you could be good with any of the guys. And now you look at it and, the Wally news is crushing because of all that you just said. I mean, he came in a very tough position. The Colts go out in free agency and bring in a former All-Pro in Charvarius Ward. You've got Kenny Moore here, and Jalen Jones is a guy who has started 26 of the last 27 games for the Colts. Juju Brents was a second-round pick who, when he's healthy, he has been able to stay on the field. Or when he's able to stay on the field, you've seen what he can do. So for Justin Wally, you come into a group that is, it's already full of talent, and he was able to put his level right above everybody else and prove that he belonged, and not only belonged, but was gearing towards being a starter. So that is a crushing blow. But then, I mentioned Juju Brents and Jalen Jones, both of them dealing with hamstring injuries, which those soft tissue things for a corner, they seem to just linger on and they just drag out. So you don't want to rush anybody back, especially because of the position that they play. So right now, I mean, Samuel Womack probably just for him, this guarantees a roster spot for him and significant playing time than I saw last night. You think about some of these guys who maybe they aren't household names, but Alex Johnson, he's a guy who goes out and has a one-handed interception, knocks down a pass in the second quarter, and you say, hey, there's a corner, maybe he can give you something. So there's some guys that Jonathan Edwards, another undrafted rookie that he got some run yesterday with that starting defense that they put out there. So those are kind of the three names that right now I think you're going to start to really see, especially this next week. But the biggest name you want to hear is Juju Brents or Jalen Jones are getting closer to returning, because that will help tremendously, because this Justin Wally news is absolutely crushing.
Okay, Casey, lastly, you are or are not an occasional gambler, and I don't mean on NFL games you work for a franchise. I just mean like if you go to Vegas, you're going to play a couple rounds of roulette type thing.
Oh yeah, love the game of craps. I'm a craps guy. Yeah.
See, and there's two kinds of people in this world: those that understand craps and those that aren't degenerates. Right? Isn't that how that
right.
works? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So here's my gambling question for you. I'll let you and Eddie wager on this. I have to fly tonight through LAX to the IndyCar event in Portland. Okay. The convenient flight of Indy to LAX to Portland. I think I actually booked it way back when, so I can't blame anybody but myself. But I just noticed that I have a 40-minute connection. Now, I'm landing 40 minutes before my connecting flight is taking off, and there is a 38-gate gap between the two. If you consider the landing, the deboarding, I'm not in for this one. I think I'm in not a the premium, mid-pack. I'm like in row 15 or something, okay? So I will or will not make said connecting flight.
I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to say you will not.
Eddie?
You said 38 gates?
I'm coming into gate G14 and departing from gate G52.
Oh, boy.
Same terminal, though. Same terminal.
Yes. Okay, same terminal. How familiar are you with LAX?
Oh, I mean, I've been there 100 times. I'm guessing that when you get off the plane, you just look up and you've got to go either left or right, but you got to go 38. Right. And hopefully it's not 38 gates, it's 19 gates, right?
Right. Yeah, I understand that completely.
But it's a matter of how long it takes me. There's always going to be some jackass in front of me that's holding things up and he can't get his bag out, and you know what I mean? Yep. Somebody else jumping in line.
Yeah. You got 40 minutes.
Do I start when we're flying over about Phoenix? Do I start letting everybody around me know, like, just to get out of the way?
Hey, I gotta go. Yeah. Are you bringing carry on?
Yeah, I never do checked bag.
Okay, all right.
So
you get yours and you go. Okay.
I got a roll bag and a backpack.
Oh man, you're flirting with it. You know what? Because of your familiarity with LAX, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to change my answer, and I'm going to say you're going to make it, but it's going to be cutting it close.
Okay. Just so you know, and Eddie knows this, I'm somebody that there used to be a lot I was flirting with, but I'm retired now, Casey, just so you know. Okay? I need to make sure that's official. All right, Casey Valier, our guest. Casey, a pleasure as always, man. Enjoyed listening last night, and obviously a full season to be able to do so.
Yep, I can't wait to have you on again. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Casey Valier joining us on the program. Now let's get Paulie, I believe, is called in with thoughts on Anthony Richardson. Paulie.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, I got the key to everything. If you listen, I had to listen to the game yesterday on the radio, and last night they said that Anthony Richardson, when he was up playing, everybody on the offensive line had never played football in an NFL game before. Go back and listen to the radio, and you'll hear that. When he got tackled on WIBC, listen to it. Go back and play it.
Hold on. Now, Paulie, the game was on the fan, but I get what you're saying. But the entire offensive line are guys that have played before, though, right?
No, they said everybody that was on the line had never played a game in NFL football. It was all new.
Now, it might have looked that way to Anthony Richardson.
Go listen to that. Go listen to that.
Okay, so did they say this as – so you're saying that they were saying this as Richardson was coming up to the line? Like on that particular play or in the pregame? Do we still have Paulie? Did we lose Paulie? Paulie went the way of Billy. Do we have a maximum on the amount of time that we can have? Paulie, are you there?
Well, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Go ahead and go listen to the game
now,
on the radio.
At what point was this said? Because that's obviously a factual error, but at what point was this said?
Right before he got hit, it was said.
Okay. Paulie, have you moved yet?
No, I will. I'm going to try and get there. I'll get with you later on stuff. I'm going to try and move and see about going to see if I can see McCartney. I'll get out. I'm trying to get a hold of this girl that used to work at Fat Dan, see if I can find that, get that together.
Wait a minute. Where are you going to see McCartney? Paulie, where are you going to see McCartney?
We'll go out to Des Moines, Iowa, if I can get out there.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm going to see him in Denver, actually, in October. But you're going to go to Des Moines to see him. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. That's a long drive.
I didn't know he was in Denver. You're going to, instead of Des Moines, you're not going up there.
Well, Des Moines, obviously much closer, but Shannon's hometown is Denver, so we're going to she's going to go out before me to see family, and then I'm going to fly out, and we're going to see McCartney.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But
well,
that's good.
All right.
Well,
Paulie,
hey,
I'll tell you what. When you're
you.
ready to make the move, Paulie, you let me know. I want to. Here's the thing: if Billy from Tyler, Texas, ever comes in town, I want to take Billy and Paulie out and do lunch, and then we'll get Paulie the TV for his new apartment. All right, Paulie, sound good?
Well, yeah. Hey, listen to that.
Paulie, I got to run. The show's over at 3. That's the only problem, Paulie. Martin's up next. Martin, what's up, Martin?
Hey, Jake, I had a zip code fun fact for you.
Okay.
I know how you love these things. So 12345. So 12345 is Schenectady, New York, which is right next to Albany, and I know that because
you're saying the zip code 12345 is Schenectady.
Yeah.
Say it again. The name of the town, please.
Schenectady.
Okay.
And it's right next to Albany on the Hudson River. And my dad went to college there. He went to Union College, who is their most famous alum is President Chet Arthur.
Chester A. Arthur, baby, the pride of Ohio. Here's the thing, Martin, and I do know this much. I did not know that fun fact, but I do know this. Do you know why they gave it zip code 12345?
Is it General Electric?
They gave it that zip code because it's the easiest to remember, and they felt bad because everybody in that town had to spell out Schenectady, New York, or however the hell you say it. Say the name of the town again.
Schenectady.
Schenectady. I can't even say that. Schenectady. Can you spell?
Just Google Union College and then just copy and paste.
Okay. Can you spell Schenectady? Can you spell it? And
Not a chance in
listen, I'm the 1990 North Central High School radio television tongue twister champion, but I have a problem with, and I'm very good at tongue twisters. It's a very, very strong skill of mine. I mean, she sells seashells by the seashore. I can do that all day long. Like, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? All day long. But this town in New York where Union College is, forget about it. I don't even know how Chester A. Arthur was able to do it, better known as Chet, one of the fat guy bearded presidents, right? Had a whole era there.
Yes, sir.
Benjamin Harrison, Taft, all those guys, fat bearded guys.
His statue is very robust.
That's right. All right, Martin, I appreciate the info. Eddie, did you look up the spelling of Schenectady, New York?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to spell it out for you?
Pronounce the town name again for me, please.
Schenectady.
Schenectady.
Yeah.
Schenectady. Okay. SCH.
Mm-hmm.
EN.
Mm-hmm.
EC.
Yes.
T.
Yep.
O.
No.
Say the town again.
Schenectady.
UDY.
You're one letter off.
UDI.
No, you had the D and the Y. It's A.
Okay.
SCHENECTADY.
Now that I've spelled it, Schenectady. I could say it like Schenectady. Now that I've done it, boom, right? Schenectady. But in that beginning, man, when he was telling me that, that's tough. But now that I've seen it and spelled it, Schenectady. Kind of like my tongue twisting ability. Very, very strong suit of mine. Very strong suit of mine. You didn't know this, did you? About one of those weird skills that I have, right?
No comments.
I mean, don't even get me started on the Peter Piper. It has been a run of just bad luck in this town. I mean, I hate to go there, and maybe we need to have some sort of a I don't know what it would be. Like, do we need to release some like scent through the air, or like a eucalyptus scent? I don't know what it would be to get like a healing of the sports figures in this town, because, and I'm not making light of it. I mean, honestly, the Halliburton injury is obvious, in a totally different level. But with that said, last night, I mean, the Justin Wally injury is, you just feel for him. And also, as we just talked about with Casey, that's big for the Colts. But then the fever last night, Eddie, we talked about it. I mean, you already have Caitlin Clark out, and then it compounded yesterday, right?
Yeah, both of their point guards get hurt in that game last night. So right now, the only healthy guard they have is Kelsey Mitchell. Eric McDonald with a foot injury. We'll have to keep monitoring that. There's no real update that Stephanie White could give after the game with that injury coming in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. Sydney Colson goes down in the second quarter with a knee injury, very awkward landing. And by the way it did not look good. So she couldn't put pressure on her, I think it was her left knee, and had to be carried off the floor. So you would assume, based off of just kind of the way that her knee bent, it was very awkward on the landing, and the inability to really put pressure on it, that could be a rather lengthy injury for Sydney Colson. But of course, there are miracles. Things do exist that could happen where it's just you may have dodged a bullet. And now you got to sit, wait, and see. Do they sign somebody today, Jake, to kind of, give them a point guard? Because they play tomorrow night against the Chicago Sky.
Yeah, I mean, it just the schedule, we talked about it, Eddie. The schedule for them is tough here for another, 10 days or so, right?
It's just brutal. I mean, you have a 4-game road trip in 6 days out in the West Coast.
Here, do we have the breaking news sounder by chance? Let the games begin. Now, our little wager. Somebody said they should do a poll on whether or not I would make my connecting flight. Let the games begin here. Delayed.
Uh-oh.
Now delayed. I've got a reprieve. Now delayed by an hour and 40 minutes.
Wait, which flight? The flight
from if I was delayed on the first leg, I'd be in serious trouble.
Yes.
So I am flying. Portland is not the easiest place in the world to get to, admittedly. Usually you would fly direct to Seattle and then go from there, but the times in which we're available becomes a challenge because of the show. So I'm going to L.A. and then going from L.A. to Portland. My flight to L.A., I land at 6:15 and initially was supposed to then take off at 6:54. So 39 minutes I had to get from gate B10 to a new gate, 52G. That sounds less than ideal. Now that flight is taking off at 8:23. So that sounds like I've got a little bit of room to play with, right? Which is good news.
Yeah, that is good news.
I'll take that absolutely anytime I can get it. I'm going to keep harping on this because that's what I do.
You harp on things?
Yeah, I cling to things. I'm like Alex P. Keaton with geometry. I cling to things.
That. You do not do that at all, Jake.
When I was driving in today and I was thinking about today's show and I was thinking about the game last night. And preseason football is so meaningless that there's now only 3 games instead of 4. And preseason football is one of those things that the only way to consider a preseason football game to be a success is for there to be 0 storylines after the fact. Going undefeated in the preseason does nothing for you. Losing a game in the preseason means nothing. The Colts' best teams, they never won in the preseason. Never. It's almost like a rite of passage to go through a winless preseason.
Oh, so I get where you're going at here, Jake.
Well, but what you don't want is the storyline of the obvious. You don't want an obvious talking point the next day. You don't want an obvious water cooler conversation starter off of a preseason game. You want people to literally say, "Did you watch that game last night?" "I did." "Yeah, I didn't know who half those guys were." "Yeah, we watched it for a quarter and a half or so, and it was cool to be able to see football, but we went on to watching something else." That's what you want from a preseason game. And as I was driving in and thinking about all of this, and I got downtown and I saw the JW Marriott. And I thought about on the JW Marriott, and it is cool how it has become, the JW Marriott, the billboard of the city. The JW Marriott is essentially the Times Square marquee of Indianapolis. If you want to know if there's something big going on in town, look up at the JW Marriott. If the Borg Warner Trophy or the seal of This Is May is up, you know that it's time for the mini and time for the race. If Caitlin Clark's on it, you know the WNBA All-Star Game is here in town. If the NCAA bracket is up, you know that the Final Four is in Indianapolis. And if For the Shoe or a slogan for the Colts or a huge horseshoe are up, you know it's football season. And Eddie, I want you to name for me 3 franchises off the top of your head that you would consider to be not even necessarily Super Bowl level elite in the NFL, but those that of the last 5 years or so have been very good, very competitive, above average, 2 primetime games per year, and a contender for the playoffs on the regular.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay.
Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
And the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay. Vikings, a bit of a curveball here with my equation, but 2 out of 3. So majority. If you're in downtown Tampa, if you're in downtown Cincinnati, if you're in downtown Minneapolis, and they had the equivalent of the JW Marriott, there is no question in 2 of those 3, and probably the third because of where he was drafted. But in 2 of those 3, there's no question. The quarterback is one of the players being promoted by the franchise for the upcoming season, correct?
Without question.
When you, as a franchise, are getting ready to drum up interest, announce to the world that the season is here, and you feature on your building a defensive back, a running back, a pass rusher, and a right guard, that ain't good. Those guys are great players. Don't get me wrong. And they are important pieces to what you hope is going to be an important year or a big year. But when you are so unsure about your quarterback position, 3 years removed from drafting a guy in a single-digit number of round number 1, for the first time, drafting a franchise quarterback for the first time in nearly a decade, and 3 years later, you still aren't confident enough that that guy is your starter to put him up on the billboard for the city to see to talk about your upcoming season. The most important position in all of sports. And it is so non-important within this town that it's not up there on the JW Marriott. That tells you right there the uncertainty of this year. And the only thing that you want with that uncertainty is the certainty of at least knowing you have a guy that is done everything possible for this big-time year. And he may still. But he went out early in that game, and he got hurt. And, yes, the good news is it's not a significant injury where he's going to miss significant time. But it happened because he didn't have the recognition of what was coming his way. And recognition comes via repetition. And he didn't get the chance for that repetition because he didn't recognize what was coming and then got hurt and could not play the rest of the game. And learning those little things comes via going through it. And the fact that Anthony Richardson was not able to go through that, was not able to get yesterday that game, in a game that should have had everybody just saying, yeah, I watched a little bit of it and Richardson looked fine, and then I went on to watching Sneaky Pete on Netflix. Instead, the conversation is about the fact that the guy that continues to need repetition was unable to do so because he got hurt on a play that he didn't recognize, and that's your talking point. And then, when it comes down to it, the most important position in all of sports, and you still are letting the world know you don't know if you've got it right. Bob, I'll get to you next. Kevin Bowen joining us in 18. I mean, for what reason, Eddie? For what reason? It's a great song. I like it.
So I haven't.
Don't even bother looking at the music video of this song. By the way,
Did I play this last week? Did I play it last Friday or no? I don't think I did. But I bring it up to mention 2 nights ago, so this would have been Wednesday night. Woke up in a cold sweat, and this song was in my head.
Really?
Yes. I'm like, oh my goodness.
You know, theoretically, a cold sweat. Now, let me ask you.
I didn't have a cold sweat. I just woke up in the middle of the night.
Does cold sweat mean that the perspiration itself is cold because it's trying to cool you off? Or does cold sweat mean that you are sweating because you have a cold and your body temperature has risen? Do we know? Which is
I don't know.
Is this if you were to touch somebody, and this sounds disgusting.
Sudden sweating episodes unrelated to heat or exertion, often accompanied by feelings of being flushed yet chilly.
Okay, so you feel cold and yet you're sweating. That's why it's called a cold sweat?
It also can refer to a state of extreme worry or fear.
What's the last thing you were truly, truly fearful of?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
I mean, aside from the obvious of, health of family and things like that, non-life serious things. What's the last thing that truly what is let me ask you this. What is your phobia? Everybody has a phobia. What's your phobia?
I don't really have a phobia.
I have a theory on this.
Okay. What's your phobia?
People often have, I'm going to mention 2 things, and usually most people, and I know you'll be the iconoclast here, but most people, when you mention these 2 things, one of the 2 people go, yep, nope, not doing it.
Can I guess?
And then the other one, people are like, yeah, that one doesn't bother me as much, but it's one or the other. Nobody likes both of these things, but there's one of the 2 that terrify. They're like, nope. But the other one, they're like, yeah, that doesn't bother me as much. There are 2 things. Go ahead. You can guess.
Clowns.
Okay.
And spiders or insects.
What do people have against clowns? Clowns are cool. John Wayne Gacy kind of screwed it up for people, but clowns are cool. Bozo's cool, right? Cookie's cool. Grand prize game used to make me livid watching kids try to do the ping pong ball thing and win the $50 bill and the bike, but clowns are cool. I don't understand. You go to the haunted houses thing, they always have a clown theme. They always also have chainsaws are a big deal. But it's this. Spiders are one, snakes are the other.
Snakes was honorable mention for me.
Okay.
I think snakes are cool. I am fascinated.
Okay, what about spiders?
Don't bother me.
Okay, you are definitely in the minority there. Snakes, big negative for me. No way. Nope.
Olivia's like, hey, can you come kill this spider? I'm like,
spiders don't bother me.
I was like, yeah, I'll pick it up and I'll take him outside, but I'm not killing him.
I'm the same way. I put them in a cup, let them go, have at your second lease on life. Spiders don't bother me. Even big, don't bother me.
And then
Snakes,
she'll take a shoe and just no matter where he's at, he's on the wall. Yep. He's dead.
Snakes, big, like a king cobra.
Splat.
No interest in that. Bob, did you watch last night's Colts game? Bob, what's going on in the background?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
With it laying flat, the reflection, I couldn't see it.
Bob.
Even if
Okay, I gave Bob a shot. Bob, you there? Sorry, Bob. Now, how does that happen? How are you on hold, and then...
What are the odds that Bob potentially set the phone down, or he put it on speaker and just muted the... He didn't mute the mic, obviously, but he was in the middle of a conversation with somebody else.
Well, yes, but when you put the phone down, wouldn't you have heard... If you called the program, you have it on in the background, one would think, right? Like right now, he's probably just now realizing that I was taking his call, right?
I don't know.
Do you think he was actually worried about a spider and or a snake nearby? Or trying to figure out a cold sweat or zip codes? This has been a very educational show today. We've talked about, and let me just recap for people what we talked about. We talked about signs on the JW Marriott.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the phenomenon that zip codes start at, and I mentioned 1, but it's actually 0 on the East Coast and move their way west. We've talked about the the point of somebody pointed out the way that it works in terms of the second, third, and fourth numbers of a zip code and that those have relation. I think at one point we got somebody else mentioned, and I don't know if it was online or on social media by tagging us, about the fact of interstates, which I think most people know by now, that, odd and even numbered interstates, north, south, east, west, etc. We talked about injuries in Indianapolis. We talked about the fact that Paulie's going to Des Moines with a girl that he met at Fat Dan's, but he's trying to finalize it and doesn't know yet, and that's all going to depend upon whether or not he can get a new television. But last night he was listening to the radio and claims that they mentioned on the offensive line that every player on the offensive line had never before played in the NFL. And then Connie wrote in and said she heard the same thing. Now, there had to be a misunderstanding there in that regard, right?
Yeah, Tanner Bornolini had played in a game, and so did Matt Gonzalez.
Maybe they were saying that they have not played together, that particular combination has never been in entirety on the field?
Could be. And you had two rookies out there.
So maybe that's it. That particular combination of the offensive line has not previously been on the field together. But that's not to say that nobody that was on the offensive line has been out there, right? And then we discussed that DeForest Buckner, Kenny Moore, Jonathan Taylor, and Quentin Nelson are all on the JW Marriott, and that somewhat, if you really want to get Freudian, which I have an ability to do.
You love to go Freudian, don't you?
Freud dude, as he's known. Did you ever see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
No.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Eddie, is one of those movies. I'd like for you to think about this over the next couple of minutes and give me your answer when we come back, okay? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a movie that when I saw it in high school, I loved it. It was a nonstop 2-hour thrill ride of fun and hijinks and laughter and adventure. It was wonderful. It was like an adolescent Goonies. I loved everything about it. And I saw it like probably 3 times in the theater or like in a movie rental or whatever between the ages of 17 and 19. And then I hadn't seen it forever. And 10 years ago or whenever people still had DVDs, I was somewhere and it was on the basement barrel bin of DVDs at a checkout, and it was an impulse buy for $5. And I watched it and I said to myself, this is undoubtedly the dumbest, cheesiest, lowest production B movie of all time. And I'm embarrassed that I loved it. It is so bad. It is so bad. But it does have Sigmund Freud, and they call him Fruit Dude. But I'd like to know for you, Eddie, what movie it was that when you first saw it, you thought it was awesome, and you see it now and you're embarrassed that you at one time enjoyed it. Kevin Bowen joins us next. Last night, Colts in Baltimore dropping a game to the Ravens. The win-loss in the preseason typically is irrelevant. What you want out of a preseason game is to come out unscathed from an injury standpoint. And yes, you could make the argument or discussion that Anthony Richardson was, for the most part, unscathed because he had the dislocated pinky. We now know that he is expected to return to practice basically imminently. And this sounds totally bizarre, that was put back into place, and then he is good to go. It's on his throwing hand. He said that he could have gone back in even during the game, but the Colts decided not to do so. Kevin Bowen joining us now. You hear him in the morning. They were discussing this. Kevin, to me, and I want you to talk me off this ledge, it's way too early and too irresponsible for me to say this is another sign of Anthony Richardson being a football Jonathan Bender. A lot of promise, a lot of upside, a lot of unique things, a lot of things to salivate and fall in love with, but he can't stay healthy, and therefore at some point you got it. And then you go, it's one preseason game, Jake, but it's year number 3, and you have to have recognition through repetition. And last night he didn't have recognition, and that prohibited him from getting repetition. And it's just another in a 1 step forward, 2 step back, 2 step forward, 1 step back process. And I'm reaching my wit's end. Talk me off that ledge.
Yeah, I don't think I can, at least if you want me to be honest with you. As much as I do want you to get off the ledge eventually, just for your own sanity. But yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know. I wake up this morning, Jake, and it's not as much as like, oh, he's just injury prone. He's glass. He's Jonathan. You use the Jonathan Bender analogy. Like I'm not maybe as much there as I just am. Man, like how he got hurt last night, it was a further reminder of how far he has to go as an actual football player. I mean, anybody you talk to, and just watch Shane Steichen post-game, watch Anthony Richardson post-game. I mean, he made I don't want to say like a cardinal sin as a quarterback, but like he made a very elementary sort of decision, or I shouldn't say that. Basically, rather basic 101, 201 level quarterback play. He screwed that up, and not only did it cost him the rest of the game, but in a game itself, it could have been a game-changing turnover in your own territory. And if you're Shane Steichen, that I think is what you ask yourself this morning of like, man, who can I trust week 1? Because in the preseason, no one's doing anything exotic. It's vanilla as vanilla can be. And teams are now going to try and feast on that, and they see vulnerability, and they're going to attack that if Richardson is out there. So for me, it's more of just, man, it's another reminder of whatever it is. He's never going to get it, or it's 15 games of NFL experience that showed up last night. All of that, I think, is kind of where I sit with the injury right now.
Kevin, I really do want Anthony Richardson to succeed, not just because of what it would mean for the franchise and for the city, and for us, for that matter. I mean, if we're being realistic, for the Colts to be competitive. But there's no reason to dislike the guy. I think his background story is impressive. I think it's inspiring. He seems like a nice guy. But I just think that when somebody has natural gifts that prohibit them from having to really dig in, at some point when the dig-in time comes, they just, almost at no fault of theirs, don't know how to do it. And I thought last night, even afterwards, when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, yeah, I got to mind my P's and Q's better. I mean, that's a recognition I should have seen, and, I'll do better next time. At some point, you have to quit hearing that, right? Doesn't that excuse have a shelf limit, a shelf life?
Yeah, I mean, how long do we continue to say, well, he only has 15 games of experience, that's less than, a full season? It's like, well, what about 3 years in a meeting room? Like, is that not something that could, correct that moment? Yeah, again, how long do we, play that game? And I think this is what makes it difficult too, Jake. It's like you have, let's say, Richardson, makes strides mentally, identification, boom, he knows that read. Well, what about the accuracy? Okay, well, that's, yep. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Okay, well, let's say he passes the accuracy test. Then we might get back to the injury thing, which, again, last night, whatever. 90% of NFL quarterbacks probably suffered the same injury Richardson, did. But, we still have, 4 games? That's the most he's ever started in a row in the NFL. Maybe it's 5, something like that. So we've yet to see, a full, here's, a 3-month grind of starting the NFL, taking those hits, trying to be as available as possible for you. And that's where you just continue to start to ask questions, and the questions seemingly never end with him. I just thought last night was further complicated this thing. And if you want to live in the short term and not maybe discuss his big picture future, I think Shane Steichen, has to look at that and be like, oh gosh, who do I trust? Who do I trust week 1? Because again, that play last night, if that ball does come loose and it's a fumble, I mean, that's the difference between potentially winning and losing a football game. And when you're dealing with the amount of job pressure that I would assume is on Chris Bowden and Shane Steichen's plate, boy, that's a lot, I think, for me to factor in.
Kevin, I'm going to do a drill with you. Kevin Bowen, our guest. Before we get into, and there are other aspects of last night to talk about that I want to get into, but before that, an exercise I did with Eddie a little bit ago, I'm going to do it with you, Kevin, okay? I want you to name for me, and I'm not talking Bills and Chiefs or Chiefs and Eagles. I mean, those are the obvious, right? But give me 3 NFL franchises that right now, if you are a fan of, an executive of, whatever, you feel really good about heading into the year. They've got a good roster. There's no reason to believe that they, barring injury, will not be a team contending for, at the very least, a divisional round of the playoffs, and just seem really solid heading into this year. Give me 3 up on top of your head.
I can't name Bills, you said. How about Ravens, I guess? We'll just go with last night. How about the Lions?
Okay.
And I guess the Rams have got an injury right now. How about the Broncos?
Broncos. Okay. Now, if you were driving around downtown Baltimore, driving around downtown Detroit, or driving around downtown Denver, and they had a mural up that was 24 stories tall promoting the upcoming season, can you imagine any of those 3 not including on it Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, or Bo Nix? To me, it speaks volumes about a franchise when you are year number 3 into the drafting of a franchise quarterback and you are still not certain enough of his starting position to put him on the side of the building promoting the season. Is that me being overly critically Freudian?
No, I don't. I don't think it is. And I would ask, when is the last time you probably would even put the quarterback on such a display?
Right.
I mean, I guess maybe
they did it last year
with him.
Yeah, he was on it last year with a group of other players.
Yeah, I guess I look at the Lucas Oil Stadium, like how they have the 4 pictures, 2 on each side of those I think it's the exact same 4, if I'm not mistaken, who's on the front cover of the JW this year. And to me, it's like, yes, Jonathan Taylor, yes, Quentin Nelson, yes, DeForest Buckner, yes, Kenny Moore. And again, I don't know, maybe Matt Ryan was on it at some point. I don't think Richardson was ever on it. I don't think Matt Ryan was ever on it. And I don't know, maybe Phillip Rivers spent a year up there. But yeah, I mean, and I also think, I don't want to act like we're in a Brady, Manning, Rivers, Roethlisberger era, but I think it's a great era for the AFC right now in quarterbacks. And again, they're all young. I mean, Mahomes is the oldest, and he's not even 30, or if he is, he just turned 30. So this conference of quarterbacks is just different. I mean, you start looking at the list of guys that didn't make the playoffs last year from a quarterback standpoint, and I mean, it's still a couple of notable names on that list there. And kind of like the West, I guess, with Cooper Flagg in the NBA, it's like, oh, well, the number 1 overall pick went to the AFC, and we'll see if Cam Ward can be that. But, if you're New England with Drake May, or if you're Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, or, whatever, Miami with Tua, there are a lot of other franchises that didn't make the playoffs last season that still, varying degrees, of course, but still feel, much better about that position. And I think we had this conversation last Friday. I think you asked me about, hey, what do you think Terry McLaurin? What do you think about Michael Parsons? I think you're in a state of a franchise right now where that stuff's just frozen. Like, you can't entertain that seriously until you have quarterback. Because to me, if this season does not go according to plan, you have to have all the resources available to either draft the quarterback straight up or go and get that quarterback, identify straight up, et cetera, whatever you need to do.
By the way, Anthony Richardson last year was spiking the ball on the side of the J-Dub, right? Is that right? But again, I go back to it's year 3, and now all of a sudden there is uncertainty, at least in my opinion, on what that means to the point. But we'll see what happens moving forward. All right, Kevin Bowen, our guest. We're talking about, of course, the Colts last night. Kevin, let's try to look. It's yesterday was fun. Now you were out there hitting long, tee off shots on hole 17 in 95-degree heat for 4.5 hours. Is that right?
Yes, hole 15, a long par 5 there at the Legends. I think the toughest of the 4 par 5s. So, yeah, we had a game where the overall long drive winner of the entire outing won a very expensive golf laser. You get your laser out, shoot it at the pin and tells you how far it is. So that was the overall game. And then with each group, I went first. It said, you can take my ball, you can leave it, whatever you want to do. And we had a little, can you long drive? Can you win the long drive? So, yeah, we definitely had. I want to say 2, maybe 3. We had to say you got to hit in the fairway, but I think 2 or 3 golfers hit it longer than I did yesterday. So some very impressive long ball hitters. And honestly, it was late in the day, so I think these individuals that did that, they were a little lubed up there too.
Harley had to be one. I think Quinn was the winner of the longest drive competition. But
yeah, he was in Harley's group, Quinn. Yeah, he mashed it, and then I went out there and watched his next shot. Then he hit to 3 feet and made eagle. I was like, holy, yeah, Harley brought some ringers there.
That's impressive. Harley's a good golfer too, obviously. But it was fun yesterday, and that's my point is I don't want everything from yesterday to be a negative because we had a great outing. It was awesome for Franciscan. It was great for the sponsors that were out there. People and a lot of great folks out there. Mo was out there from Ohio. It was great. So let's focus on positives. Give me 2 to 3 things that were encouraging last night that aside from the injuries you look at and go, okay, there's something to work with there.
Well, definitely Tyler Warren, the variety of ways they got him involved. And again, I think there are probably 3 or 4 more ways that he has touched the ball at Grand Park that we didn't even see last night. So, everything about the number 1 pick you have to be excited about. I thought JT Tuimoloau, assuming the knee injury isn't too severe for him, I thought he had a moment or two. I know he's not top of the roster, and I don't know, maybe he's not a difference maker, but I just think the Ashton Dulin story is really cool. Undrafted now, probably 6 years ago. The college he went to, Malone, doesn't even have football anymore. He's a versatile guy. He's a reliable guy. I thought he had a couple of moments. Probably the individual highlight was that opening drive interception by Alex Johnson, undrafted kid a couple years ago. He might be playing a bigger role, with all this Justin Wally, cornerback injury situation. And I thought all in all for Spencer Schrader, to go 3 of 4, misses one off the upright from 52, 53. That's not about adding at all. So, yeah, those are probably some of the individuals. Jelani Woods had a couple catches late if you were staying up that late to watch. So, yeah, those are some of the ones that stand out.
By the way, Eddie, did you mention what movie it was that you meant that when I asked you that question? Because we're going to get Kevin in on this as well.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, it's great. So you loved it when you first saw it. Now you watch it and it's cringeworthy to you. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Kevin, give me a movie that when I mentioned Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. When I first saw it, I thought it was just awesome and cool and fun. And then many years later, since I wasn't a kid anymore, I watched it and I'm like, this is terrible. Cringeworthy, cheesy, B movie, awful, terrible acting, etc. Give me the Kevin Bowen equivalent.
See, right now, well, let me go a couple of different ways with you. Right now, I find myself watching like Shrek or Toy Story or like some of these kid-related movies that my kids want to watch, and I'm enthralled. I'm like locked in. These soundtracks are unreal. The songs are stuck in my head. I'm legitimately laughing. There's some like secret adult humor, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true of like old cartoons for certain, right?
Like that I would have, right over the top of my head. And now I'm like laughing out loud when my kids are just staring at me. I will say this, Happy Gilmore 2 didn't do it for me. And I don't know, the whole time I'm watching it, I honestly just wanted to watch Happy Gilmore 1, or I guess the original. I don't know. Maybe my expectations should be a little bit more like Colts quarterback room of like, Kevin, it's a sequel on a comedy. Like, it's just going to be stupid humor. You just laugh, man. But I didn't really, and I don't know. I mean, you would think I would have loved all the golfer cam. I thought Scotty Scheffler was funny, but that was about it.
I did hear. I've not seen Happy Gilmore 2 yet, right? But I'm curious of this, and I like him. Has Sandler outgrown the character, or is Sandler forever perpetually like the 25-year-old shiftless guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the plot around it. It's like, it's good one time to kind of do the crazy plot and then like trying to somewhat replicate it and or whatever, expand on it. It's like The Hangover. Like, how many times can you kind of do that sort of movie there? I was impressed. I mean, I thought Stiller made me laugh, and the fact that Shooter is who's that? Chris McDonald, I think. The fact that he's still around also made me laugh. But yeah, I don't. Of all like movies, I feel like sequels to comedies might be the hardest thing.
Yeah, I would agree. You know why? Because oftentimes the comedies that work, Kevin, work because it's unexpected. Like The Hangover was not a movie with a lot of fanfare going into it. So I think a lot of people were just like, man, I don't know what this movie's about, but I heard it's really good. You watched it, and then it was just nonstop hijinks hilarity, right? So then you try to redo that, and it's like, yeah, are we still doing this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's like the perfect way to put it. Yeah. It catches you off guard. You're like, oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. Whereas like, maybe I should have just laughed and been happier about it.
Hunter Wohler, I thought, again, kind of a late addition to the wow, this guy's impressing me in camp conversation, but he again looked good yesterday. And the question is there a danger in your leading tackler being your safety? Was Hunter Wohler a guy that there was some false promise within the numbers that he accumulated yesterday, Kevin, or is he a guy that continues to push for an increased role on this roster with each passing week?
Well, I definitely think he will have a roster spot. Let's start there. I think there's potential for him to be involved maybe in some defensive sub packages. I thought it was a little mixed bag from him yesterday. Honestly, arguably the biggest negative Richardson situation was the special teams coverage was horrendous on that kick and on that punt. And I thought the run defense was really poor early in the game, really throughout the first half. Like, the Ravens won the football game with like 50 passing yards. I mean, like, how many times do you see that? Not to get into wins and losses. Well, why'd they win it? Well, they busted a few returns and they ran the ball really at will. And I thought Wohler and those linebackers were involved in just some really, really poor run fits there. So, again, I think he's shown up. He's definitely made plays in coverage. He's going to make the team. He's probably the third safety. I'm trying to think. Was it him and Rodney Thomas maybe that started last night with Cam Bynum and Nick Cross both sitting out? So, I 7th round picks to say on August 8th they're on the football team, let alone they might have a role on an offense or defensive side of the ball, is pretty rare. So he's definitely done a lot of good.
How concerned are you about special teams?
I would say semi-concerned. I mean, Rigoberto Sanchez is great at what he does. I think Anthony Gould actually had a couple of moments as a returner last night. But, coverage-wise, they lost Grant Stewart, easily their best special teamer. And then even some other guys like Kylan Granson played some roles on special teams. And there are a couple others that, they have to replace. And then kicker, I mean, outside of 5 teams, probably everybody in the league is legitimately, like, afraid at kicker or, uneasy at kicker. You're, like, 2 bad weeks away from everybody is calling kickers around the league to, bring them in for a tryout. So, Schrader, it's weird. I feel like watching him kick so far in the couple weeks of spring or a couple weeks of camp, he literally looks like Matt Gay to me. Like, he's had a nice percentage. His misses seemingly are all 50 yards or longer, and he hits them off the uprights. I mean, last night he also did that. Like, so, to me, it's like, is that panic button at kicker? And this probably gets back into more of a Matt Gay offseason conversation. And I guess to go down that path for a second, did Matt Gay live up to the contract? No. Was it at a DEFCON level that all of a sudden you needed to cut him? I didn't think so either, especially when it's not like that money was then used elsewhere. So that is just a little surprising to me that, like, they went that panicky at kicker. We'll see how it plays out. But, yeah, Schrader, again, it's been very Matt Gay-like to me.
A guy that Kevin Bowen is our guest. You hear him in the mornings on, of course, the Fan Morning Show, along with James Boyd and Jeff Rickard, talking about the Colts from last night. Kevin, a guy that I'm interested to watch what happens because they have been so patient with him through the injuries, and that's Jelani Woods. And you mentioned tight end. It's a crowded room for certain. Did anybody, if you're talking about non-Tyler Warren division, really stand out or separate themselves, including notably Woods?
Again, I thought Woods had a couple catches late. I think he's got a bit of a hill to climb to make the team, though. And, a lot of times, Jake, you can look at these preseason games and been like, okay, when are you playing in the game? The earlier you play, obviously, the better. The later you play, it's not a good indication of where you're at in the roster. Well, Jelani Woods was in that game very late. So, the guys that didn't play at tight end was Mo Alley Cox, and then Tyler Warren exited, rather, I guess, somewhat early. Obviously, they're safe. And then I think next up was Drew Ogletree and Will Mallory. I think they're safe. Tight end seems simple to me. I think they keep 4, and Jelani Woods maybe's on the practice squad. So I don't really have too much. I think tight end, a wide receiver, is very easy to cut down. I don't know how many years I've said that. I think wideouts, it's a pretty clear 6. It's Pittman, it's Pierce, it's Downs, it's Mitchell, and then 5 and 6 is Anthony Gould and Ashton Doolin. So, to me, the pass catchers are pretty easy.
Please tell me that Ulysses Bentley IV is going to make the roster. I need this to happen because I'm creating the character of Ulysses Bentley IV on the radio show.
Gosh, I feel such shame in admitting that I laughed when I heard that voice between you and Joel Erickson. I don't know if I laughed more at your voice or more at Joel Erickson laughing at you. The Joel Erickson laugh is one of the best laughs out there.
It is pretty solid, yes.
Yeah, it is. So, when he got in the game last night, I thought, oh, boy, for Jake's ego, would this be good if he ripped off a 50-yard run? But he did not there. I do not think Bentley IV, no, right? Running back, you keep 3, maybe 4. No, he's not one of those. I don't know, maybe practice squad. But, Tyler Goodson, DJ Giddens, and then we'll see about Khalil Herbert.
Ulysses Bentley IV should be number 0. Technically speaking, right? Because then the back of his jersey would say UB40, right? Which would be cool, would it not?
Gosh, I mean, there's literally nothing you have said has ever summed up here in the final hour of the week like that.
If Ulysses Bentley IV does not make the roster, Kevin, he's going to be okay because he's going to go work in a family business. I mean, it's just laid out for him. It goes without saying. Does it not seem like does the name Ulysses Bentley IV not just absolutely scream of the guy, though, that is sitting in front of a fireplace reading Shakespeare?
No, it's, like you said, somebody that was whatever. A general in the French and Indian War, who knows? Yeah, something along those lines there. Yeah,
That was actually the second. Yes, but this is the fourth.
Distant cousin of Stetson Bennett IV, if we could go back to our Georgia quarterback.
That is correct. So you did not yesterday play. You just hit long drives all day, right?
Yeah, and it's so embarrassing how sore I felt this morning waking up. I loved it, honestly. And again, I hope that next year we can do this. I think it'd be awesome if we can get you on the course doing trivia within the show. I think it's like, again, how do we make kind of our outing unique? And I think having, all of us out there on the course. So you see every group. Some of these outings, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go play in the outing. Well, if you're playing the outing, you don't see every group. Whereas if you're on one hole, every group obviously is seeing you at some point. So
I mean, we saw everybody. I saw everybody at the beginning, and then I had to do the show, right? So during the time that people were playing, I was doing the show. But it was
we need some sports Jeopardy, I think, and then obviously John and the Papa Shot I thought worked out nicely. It was a fun day. I think we can definitely continue to make it better, though, and really appreciate everybody coming out, and hope they had a fun time down there at the Legends.
All right, Kevin, should be a good weekend. Certainly enjoy it, and we'll talk to you soon, all right? We'll be listening on Monday to get the breakdown of what happens over the weekend with the Colts.
Jake, Eddie, thank you.
All right, Kevin Bowen joining us on the program. We come back. It's a Friday, bottom of the hour. You know what that means. It is a Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday, partially playing into what we were just talking about, but also a program that was brought to try to bring attention and awareness to a sport, and Indianapolis is showing itself out with it. I'll explain what I'm talking about next. It is a Friday. Usually we play, and there's a very good reason Eddie went with that song. Usually we play The Heart of Rock and Roll from Huey Lewis. To mention the fact that we are now at the time of the week where we do our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And there's a lot to feel good about when it comes to the world of sports. And especially now that we are getting into the school year, I look forward to featuring high school athletes that have overcome odds or overcome an injury or just worked extra hard each and every week to get back on the diamond, the court, the field, whatever it might be. That's the idea in this segment that we do. And also, of course, to make mention, and I am so appreciative yesterday when we were at our golf outing that Kevin had mentioned that benefited the Franciscan Health Foundation. A couple of things that I was very grateful for. Number one, just Franciscan's partnership with us. But number two, the number of people that have come up to me to say that they got a heart scan. It's non-invasive. It's just $49. And it's so important, especially if you're over the age of 40 and you have one of the risk factors of heart disease or high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, any of those number of things, then the heart scan is a very important thing because you get a heart health risk assessment with it as well to find out just what your journey might be in terms of making sure that you have the proper cardiological health. And Franciscan's been great about that in making people aware of that. For just $49, you can self-refer, but also the number of people that have come up to me to say, look, I got a scan and I found out that, I've got to be more conscientious. Or some people even have come up to me to say they got a stent based off of it. And, those things can be life-saving, truth be told. And yesterday, finding out more about the Franciscan Health Foundation and Franciscan Care and helping out, as the money that was raised yesterday will do, those that are going through cancer treatments at Franciscan for emotional support, financial support, which is obviously a big one. Those are some of the areas that Franciscan and their compassion care work out in that foundation. And one of the stories when it comes to sports that I love is when you hear kids and young people that are being introduced to a sport or going into an avenue that perhaps either, just their neighborhood, their environment, or things around them wouldn't normally facilitate towards. And Little League Baseball was such a fun thing for me as a kid growing up. And we've talked about it with the Little League World Series going on. And baseball now has become, and I get it, from a youth standpoint, you have, travel ball and all of that goes in. And I know the time commitment that goes into and the financial commitment for parents and young people with travel baseball and all the tournaments that go on and all of that. And it's great and it's wonderful. But I think the travel ball, Eddie could probably speak to this more than myself, but when you think of Little League Baseball in the old days of, the Fall Creek Little League and Randsburg Little League and Eagledale Little League and, all of them that took place, that now I think to a great extent has been kind of replaced by the year-round travel baseball thing of kids that are very competitive, very good, and that's a wonderful thing, and it creates a passion for the sport, no doubt about it. But realistically speaking, and I mean this as no knock on those kids, realistically speaking, there has become within the youth level of baseball an increasing gap between the haves, and I'm talking about resources, not just plain skill set, the haves and the have-nots, in the fact that the travel baseball and the money that goes into it, and baseball in general at the Little League level in inner cities has declined because of a number of factors, but one of them being the economics involved, but also the space involved, because you have to have the space to build a diamond, and in inner city areas, that is obviously, harder to do than it is out in a suburban area. And in 1996, it came about. Play Ball Indiana essentially was the initial. Play Ball Indiana was a group that was designed to be able to help and facilitate for baseball to be played for kids that normally may not get that opportunity or even introduction into the sport. And a guy named Mike Lennox really took the bull by the horns with this in partnering with the Indianapolis Indians. Randy Lewandowski, who is a super dude, the general manager of the Indianapolis Indians, just a great, great guy. And they wanted to make sure that kids from all areas were being able to play the game of baseball and be introduced to the game of baseball. And Major League Baseball began the RBI program, Reviving Baseball in Inner Cities, which was designed exactly for this, to make sure that kids from all backgrounds had the equipment, had the instruction, had the facilities, and had the resources to play the game that is America's pastime. Because if it's America's pastime, that means that it should be available for everybody in this great country, as everything from when you think about the Sandlot all the way up to watching the Little League World Series. You know, your concession stand, your Big League Chew, your Astro Pop, your snow cones, your baseball cards. It's Americana. And for kids back in 1996 that normally maybe would not have had that within their neighborhood, to have that possibility is awesome. And they've grown it more and more, and they have given equipment, and they've given resources, and they've given lessons. And I think it's awesome that Major League Baseball holds a national tournament for RBI baseball, Reviving Baseball in Inner Cities, and Indianapolis has a team. And they have a team because of the program that Mike and Randy have built. And that team right now is in Vero Beach, Florida. And tonight they are playing in the RBI Baseball National Championship. These are teenage young men. Their softball as well has this. But from the baseball standpoint, essentially the World Series, the national tournament for this. And it's going to air tonight on MLB TV. So they will have the opportunity for people all over this country to see what baseball and the vision of Mike and Randy and the Indians, but notably those kids that were simply given the opportunity in the introduction to the game, and now for them also, it has become their pastime and their passion, and they are representing this city at the highest of levels. So with that, I say to all of them, best of luck. Congratulations on making it this far. Win or lose, you've done Indy proud, and that's what it's all about. I love everything about it, and it does make your heart feel good. Make sure your heart feels good with a $49 heart scan from Franciscan Health, franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles, where you can find information, or call 833-238-0688. Trust me, no 12-year-old mentality there at all. I mean, I didn't have this kind of Earl Campbell level thigh when I was 12. You know what I mean?
What about Shaquan Barkley?
Can you imagine? I would imagine he also is a trampoline when it comes to his hamstrings. I was thinking about this last night.
What was that, Jake?
We talked a little bit yesterday about IU basketball. If you were to look at the Indiana football season, we're gonna do this fun exercise.
Is it going to be fun?
We'll do it for Indiana, Notre Dame, and Purdue.
By the way, did anyone in Bloomington see anyone parachuting today? I heard Dave Revson and company were at.
That's right.
Big Ten practice for the Hoosiers.
They got. Didn't he say that they were parachuting in? Right.
Yeah.
Let me read you the Indiana schedule, and then when I read it, I just simply want you to tell me win or loss. Okay.
Okay.
And not like, don't break it down. Just boom, boom, boom. Okay. Old Dominion.
Win.
Kennesaw State.
Win.
Indiana State.
Win.
Illinois.
Loss.
At Iowa.
I don't know. Loss. No, win. I'll go win.
Okay. At Oregon.
Loss.
Michigan State.
Win.
UCLA.
Is that home?
Yes.
Win.
At Maryland.
Win.
At Penn State.
Loss.
Wisconsin.
Here?
Yes.
Win.
At Purdue.
Win.
9-3. 9-3, you've got them. Okay? Now, let's go to Notre Dame. Okay?
Okay.
At Miami.
I will go win.
Texas A&M.
Wait. No, I'll change that. Loss. I forgot. I was like, who's Miami's quarterback? And I was like, oh, it's Carson Beck. I mean, at least we know what Carson Beck is, and we don't even know who the starter is for Notre Dame yet.
Okay, so you're saying at Miami is a loss, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Kevin.
Texas A&M.
Where's that game played?
At Notre Dame.
Win.
Purdue.
Win.
At Arkansas.
Loss. Win. Win. Yeah, win.
Boise State.
Win.
NC State.
Win.
USC.
Win.
At Boston College.
Win.
Navy.
Win.
At Pittsburgh.
Win.
Syracuse.
Win.
At Stanford.
Win.
Okay, so you've got them with one loss, and it's on opening week. Notre Dame fans hate when I say this. I always think they have a very easy schedule. I think their schedule is very favorable versus that of, say, playing in the Big Ten. But I digress. Okay, Purdue, you ready?
Yep.
Ball State.
Win.
Southern Illinois.
Win.
USC.
Loss.
At Notre Dame.
Loss.
Illinois.
Loss.
At Minnesota.
Loss.
At Northwestern.
Win.
Rutgers.
Win.
At Michigan.
Loss.
Ohio State.
Loss.
At Washington.
Loss.
Indiana.
Loss.
So you have Purdue going 4-8, which I think if you're Purdue, you'd be happy with that, right?
Well, it's just like, I don't even know. It's so unpredictable. You don't know what you're getting from them yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they know. I do think that he's a good coach, and I think he was a good hire, Barry Odom. But, you know, that they have so many new faces. I don't think anybody knows who they are. I'm going to do one more with you, Eddie, just because I want, selfishly speaking, 100% selfishly speaking. I'm the only one that probably cares about this, but what the hell? We've got 3 minutes left in the week, okay? And J&V, by the way, up next. Where did you say John is today?
Harris Hoosier Park in Anderson.
Awesome. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to do with you the Clemson schedule, Eddie. I want you to be completely honest because I need to know, and I know that I mocked the Notre Dame schedule. This one's really bad. But here we go. You ready?
Okay.
LSU at home.
Win.
Troy.
Win by 1 million.
At Georgia Tech.
Win.
Syracuse.
Win.
At North Carolina.
Win.
At Boston College.
Win.
SMU.
Win.
Duke.
Win.
Florida State.
Win.
At Louisville.
Win.
Furman.
Sorry, Alec. Furman?
Yep.
Really?
Okay. At South Carolina.
Ooh. That could go either way. I'll go loss there.
Okay. So that would put them at 11-1 and the ACC champions.
Perhaps.
The ACC regular season champions.
Perhaps.
What do you mean?
I mean, you never know. South Carolina could go undefeated with their.
Well, South Carolina's not in the ACC.
Oh, that's right. Duh. Sorry, conference realignment is really.
Well, they've
messed
never
up my
been
brain.
in the ACC. South Carolina's SEC, Clemson's ACC, but they annually play because of the rivalry of it.
Okay.
But the LSU, that's going to be a big one, the LSU game. Now, part of the reason I bring it up, November 14th is the game at Louisville. I think that's the Colts bye week, is it not?
Let me pull up the Colts schedule and I'll tell you.
I think that's the Colts bye week. If I don't do my vacation on the Colts bye week, then I'll try to find somebody to go with me down for the Louisville game, the Clemson-Louisville game.
My friend, my only friend Alec, he's a Louisville fan. There you go.
I ain't taking no Louisville fan. And I kind of like Louisville. Listen, I like Louisville in basketball a lot. I mean, when I was a kid, I always liked Denny Crum. And the Louisville football game was where I met my friend Tony, who's
Tony.
a Clemson season. Hey, Tony.
Yeah, you're right.
Clemson season
bye
ticket
week
holder.
for the Colts.
It
Yes.
is. So
yes.
I'll probably be out of town. But Louisville football fans, I really like Louisville. I love the city of Louisville. I like the University of Louisville. I love the basketball program. But when I went to the Louisville football game, every single Louisville football fan was a guy that had, I'm trying to think, they all looked like a bad, emaciated version of 2004 Nick Lachey. They all had on chunky jeans and the pointy shoes and like an Ed Hardy shirt and then like big hair gel and bad tats. Every Louisville fan there, it was weird. It was weird. I mean, I'm not saying they were necessarily bad folks, but, it was just weird. Okay, J&V is up next. He is at Harrah's Hoosier Park up in Anderson. We will be back with you, obviously, on Monday. Thank you to Casey Valier for joining us earlier today. Thank you to Kevin Bowen as well. IndyCar Portland this weekend. I am on my way. Eddie, I'll see if I can bring you anything back from the Pacific Northwest. And we will reconvene at noon on Monday. I look forward to it. And most importantly, I thank you, as always, for listening to Query and Company.